I remember myself just standing there staring at the TV. My host mom was crying. Same, my host dad was crying also. They were trying to hug me, and I was just standing there staring at the TV, not believing what was happening. And then I just kind of fell on the floor, and I just sat there, and I couldn't even cry. I just had no zero emotions at all.
Hi, everyone. Welcome back to the new format of the show. We're gonna mainly today talk to Ulyana, our guest. Hey, can you say hi? Ulyana is going to tell us about her experience with the war that Vladimir Putin started with Ukraine last February. We're going to talk through how this last year of her life has been and her experience interacting with people in America. Let's go right to that. Roll Tide.
It was in my head. I made a decision.
Hi, my name's Max. That's Polina,
Nikita
and
is over here.
that's Nikita. And then there's Ulyana. Tell us a little about yourself.
Hey everybody, my name is Ulyana. I am originally from Ukraine, from eastern Ukraine, city of Kryvyi Rih. I came to the US 1 year ago in August to study as an exchange student in high school in Kansas. Currently, I am in Connecticut studying at college because I stayed here after the war broke out in February.
Can you tell us a little about that day?
Of course, that day I remember is probably the one day I will remember for the rest of my life. It was the day when my heart broke so many times. I remember myself being at school and I got a call from my dad. I was really, really worried that day because the things were getting tense and we didn't know what's going to happen. And I ran out of my class to talk to my dad. He seemed to be fine, everything was fine. So I calmed down, but I had that weird feeling. I just thought something was coming. And later that day, me and my friends went to church. Um, I remember myself standing in front of the stage and listening to music that was playing at church. And I got a message on my phone that the bombing started in eastern Ukraine. That was the moment when my heart just dropped. But I had those thoughts in my head that maybe it's just all fake. Maybe it's not happening. Like I couldn't just believe that. So I just kind of just shut my phone down and I decided to just go along with my friends and do whatever. We went to Dunkin' Donuts, and that was the moment when I said, guys, I think something is happening in Ukraine and I cannot be here right now. So, like, can we please go home? They took me home, and my friend was holding my hand the whole car ride. That was really appreciated. And I'm coming inside of the house to see my host family, and I see the big screen with
Because
all.
because because your family, your parents were back in
Yes,
Ukraine,
all
right?
my family is back there. I'm here by myself, and I'm coming in the house to see my host family because they were already calling me and telling me that I have to head back home. I'm coming in, I'm seeing the screen, and I see all the explosions, the bombings, the fires, and I remember myself just standing there staring at the TV. My host mom was crying. Same, my host dad was crying also. They were trying to hug me, and I was just standing there staring at the TV, not believing what was happening. And then I just kind of fell on the floor, and I just sat there, and I couldn't even cry. I just had no zero emotions at all.
Is your family still there?
Yes, all my family is still there.
Do you have any understanding like about what's going on there right now? What is right there in your hometown? How is life there? Do you have any knowledge about that?
Yeah, I do. It's pretty tough there. It's scary. Like I'm talking to them all the time on the phone, and I can hear the rockets sometimes. I can hear the siren, which is terrifying to me. My mom always complains about lack of sleep because of the sirens and because of her inner fear that something could happen. I always get notifications on my phone when the sirens go off and on in my city, so I'm always like in track. I keep track of stuff that's happening there, and every time they say that the missile hit my city or there was a shooting or whatever happened, I always text and call them to ask them how are they doing. I text my friends and all of
Just
that.
just just for our viewers' sake, what's the last time you got a notification like that?
A few hours ago about the drones that were coming to
Mhm.
my city.
I think that a lot of people will ask, and I think all of us would really hate that question, but it is people will ask this. Why doesn't your family move? Right? You moved. Why doesn't your family move? And I think all of us have heard that question so many times in different situations. Can you talk a little about that?
Yeah, of course. I don't think that people who ask the question really understand what's happening in people's minds and hearts when they hear that. But personally, in my experience, I was already away from my home. Like, I was in America, and when it happened, I had it on my mind. I said, I'm coming back home. I'm going back no matter what. Like, I was gonna go home. But the time went by and I started realizing my mom would like call me and cry and say like, please don't come back. It's gonna be our fault if something happens to you because the process of coming back was really tough. We had to fly to Poland and then take a bus. And in my case, I had to drive the bus all the way to Eastern Ukraine through all the um, cities that were bombed, and you just don't know what's going to happen to you. So my family didn't come here or somewhere else because my dad is a farmer. He has a business there. He has a whole farm that he's been developing for years and years. He's attached to the city where he was born. So and plus he can be militarized. He can go and fight as well. So he just physically cannot leave the country. Same with my older brother. My mom would just typically not leave because of my dad. She would say, I'm not leaving your dad. I'm staying here because this is our home. This is where we raised our kids. This is where we have our business. This is where we go shopping. This is our home. Like, we're not supposed to leave our house. If somebody just comes here and says, hey, listen, you have to leave or you'll be killed.
You mentioned that your dad cannot leave the country, and again, that's for the viewers who most likely have never faced with the situation like this. Hopefully, the thing is, and these days is pretty much similar in Russia and in Ukraine, that once they issue a mobilization or an official like state of war, they have to lock the country down. So to prevent the like all the men who are considered to be like reservists, yeah, so they are basically the manpower, the resources that are to be mobilized in a situation like that, so to protect the country. So they have to keep them inside the country within the borders, and they issue an official ban preventing them from leaving the country.
It's interesting your response about how you said you just wanted to go back home even though there's war happening, because the few Ukrainian students we have here in my university, that's basically the same thing they all said. They were like, we just want to go back. And actually one of them did, but I think she lived in a different part of Ukraine, but their parents just didn't want them to come back. And there was actually a person whose parents were also farmers, and they were like, we live here, why would, like, this is, no, we're not leaving.
Some of my friends, some of my fellow exchange students actually made it home to safer areas, Western Ukraine mainly. And hearing from them is like feeling myself here as well, because we all have the same feeling. I blame myself for not going back. They blame themselves for going back. Because here I have my life, I go to college, I am relatively safe. Um, there, they're like the sirens and the threat of getting killed every day is just so much anxiety for them, and they blame themselves for going back because they lost that feeling of being safe. But on the other hand, they're happy to be with their families because whatever happens to their family happens to them as well. And I don't have the same feeling here because if something happens to my family back home, I'm here by myself. So I'm just gonna have to cope with that.
I mean, you are basically a regular American student right now, right, Ulyana? Uh, I mean, most universities have 10 to 30% international students, right? What do you study?
I'm studying cybersecurity.
Is that something you've always been interested in? Is that something you've become interested in?
It's an interesting question because I came here to study marketing. It was in my head. I made a decision. I was pretty sure about it. And then all of a sudden, I just started like getting to know people who worked in this cybersecurity area. I found myself so interested in this field that I was like, oh, you know what? I think I'm gonna give it a shot and just try it out. And so far, I'm loving it. I'm so interested and I'm excited to every day to go to classes and study something that I'm really, really into.
You said you came to America to study abroad to high school, but then you said you're in college right now.
Yes. So my exchange program was a scholarship that you can get only if you study in ninth, eighth, or 10th grade in Ukraine or some other countries in Europe. And I won a scholarship when I was in 10th grade. So I came here to study in a high school in the senior year, my senior year. I got into college in March when I realized that I have to find some other options rather than go back to Ukraine. And I was applying to multiple colleges around the US, and only like four of them responded and were ready to help me out somehow. And my pick was this one eventually.
Are you enjoying your education?
Yes, I like it. I enjoy it a lot. I met incredible people around me, and yeah, I love it.
Talk about that. Talk about other students and what's your experience been like that? Have they been supportive? Do they think of you as different or like uh, I was an international student and at an American college. So I know, I mean, international students, if you have an accent or if you're part of an international group, people do treat you differently, but your experience is a lot more than that. You're not just an international student, you're an international student from a country that's on the news constantly. I wonder if that gets annoying. Um, how do people interact with you? What's been the best interaction regarding your sort of identity, and what's been the worst?
So my experience is different. I can explain it from different points because high school and college are different. In high school, I had this cliche on me that I was an exchange student. I came here only for a short period of time. I'm gonna go back home. Nobody's gonna remember me ever. Nobody's gonna talk to me ever. So I didn't get as much attention as I am getting here in college. Also because before the war has started, when people would ask me where I was from, and I would say I'm from Ukraine, people would be like, "Oh, where is it? Is it Russia? Is it Poland? Is it a part of Czech Republic?" I'm like, "No, no, no, it's a country." And then after the war started, people like a lot of people texted me that day because I obviously skipped school. I wasn't able to go to school and study as a normal student. People were concerned, people were worried about me. People they didn't really ask me any questions except for if my family was all right and if my friends were okay too. That was pretty much it. Here in college, people are treating me like a student just like them. I don't have a cliche on me. I am different. I have an accent. Sometimes I am a little, I would say, not so confident about me talking to other people because I realize it's different. My school is small, so it's not like they don't get very many students from different countries. But when I explain that sometimes I don't feel confident talking to people, I always get comments that my accent is beautiful, everything is fine. So it makes me feel better, obviously. But when people ask me where I came from and I say Ukraine, it's always like hit or miss because I look at people and their faces are always like something different because Ukraine has war there and people know that. Um, and this like face when they're so confused, they don't know what to say, they don't know what to ask me because it's so different right now.
If, say, our viewer is an American in college right now, and they either know a student from Ukraine or they have a friend from Ukraine, what do you think is a nice thing? What's if you were that friend? What is something that for you personally would be helpful, would be nice to hear? I mean, you said that compliments and things that make you more certain of yourself, clearly, those are good. What's something that you wish people had said more often? Or, for example, would you want your friends to read more news about the conflict? Would you like them to ask you more about news instead of reading up? Because sometimes Americans read up on something and it's better if they hadn't.
Um, I usually get questions like, "How is your family? How are your friends? How is your house?" And I really appreciate it. Like, I care about people who care about my family, but I honestly rarely get questions regarding myself. People don't really ask me how am I doing, if I'm fine, if I miss home, if I feel safe here. It's almost like they think if I'm here, that means I'm perfectly fine and I'm doing just okay. And that's something that I would like to hear from my friends more, just to check in with me and be like, "Hey, are you okay today? Like, how was your hometown? How is it going there? What do you feel about it?"
Yeah, speaking of the general lack of awareness, geographical or cultural awareness among the Western audience, I mean, the thing is relevant not only to the US, it is still out there in the EU just as well. And I keep hearing lots of stories about that. And the beginning, the outbreak of this hideous thing, it's, I mean, it was a major threshold for many people that split their lives into two parts, before then and here now. And speaking about this general lack of awareness, how did you feel about that, about lack of knowledge about Ukraine, its culture, among some of your, I don't know, friends, colleagues, people you just encounter on a regular basis abroad? We're talking about Western audience, I believe, most likely. And how do you feel about this right now? Was there any change?
Long story short, I just wish people knew more. I just wish people put some effort in actually trying to find out more, trying to raise the awareness, because I do get comments and I do get questions like, "Oh, so is the war still going?" And honestly, every time I hear that, it breaks my heart, because like how I'm living in this like every day. I have to get up. I'm thinking about it. Like, I'm thinking about what could happen today or what could happen tomorrow, what's they gonna bring me. And then some people are just like, "Oh, so is it still going?" So it's just not working in my head, like how things could be so different.
Well, I think that's a good place to end. The war is still going. Um, I do think that in general, everyone should read the news enough to know that the war is going on, and if that's something that you're not aware of, maybe you should open the news a little more often. Um, Look around you. If there are people around you that need help, help them, ask them for that. Um, and if Elon Musk tells you that he can solve this crisis on Twitter, don't believe him. That's some Russian bullshit, and we'll see you next time. Thank you so much, Ulyana, for being here.
Yeah, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Ну, понятно, когда я говорю как бы с людьми напрямую, понятно, что у меня какой-то есть акцент, но обычно вот меня спрашивают, откуда я говорю, вот я из Украины, а потом говорят, когда ты приехала? Я говорю, год назад. Они говорят, да ну нет, мы тебе не верим, типа, у тебя такой английский хороший, типа, не
Ну,
может быть. Я говорю, да, вот в августе 21 года я переехала в Америку. И меня обычно потом спрашивают, а когда ты выучила английский, а как ты его учила, а ты знаешь больше, чем я, и все такое.
а ты как учила английский?
А в школе, в Украине, с первого класса даже с садика, меня мама отправила в садик, где у нас были уроки английского, ну это такое. Я начала его вообще вот прям, чтобы учить, в классе, наверное, 8, когда я узнала про программу, про Flex, которую я прошла в итоге. И у меня было 3 попытки ее пройти, я 2 завалила с первого же тура, я не могла просто пройти, а третью пролетела. И вот тогда я думала, что проблема в английском, мне нужно знать английский, чтобы пройти. Проблема была не в английском, но английский я все равно выучила.